Hello. Good evening, everybody. My name is Sheris Weathers. I am the pastor of Echoes Bellingham, and I am changing my name right now. And it is good to be with everyone tonight who is able to actually watch live. And hello to all of those who will watch this as a recording a little bit later. We are super happy to be hosting Hamster Church with Danielle Humphreys. Hamster Church is one event that echoes Bellingham, a funky, innovative, creative church here in Bellingham, Washington. One of the events that we have every month. So we have something going on usually every Monday night. Most Monday nights at 6:30 we meet, and we are often highlighting people from the community in order to be able to find out who they are, how we can learn from them, with the hope of being able to build networks. And the more we know our neighbors, the less we have the opportunity to other them. They don't become someone just out there. They actually become people who we know and who we can learn from. So we are grateful to have Danielle Humphreys here tonight with us. And you're going to learn a lot from her. Danielle is a friend of mine because Danielle has been at Echoes for a number of years now. And we always like to start off Hamster Church with kind of the question of, what is the most interesting thing that you've done in the recent past here in the Bellingham area? Most may be a little bit more of a superlative than we need. Something that's like been super cool or interesting to this region.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, everyone. And it's fun to be a Belling'hamster officially. So there's a couple of things that come to mind. I might just share both, but the most recent interesting thing that I did with my family was on Father's Day, which was also the day before summer solstice. We went out to the North Cascades mountain range, which is beautiful if you're not from around here, and set off on a hike, a night hike at about 9 p.m. I think is when we got to the trailhead of Thunder Knob. And three kids, I've got three kids, and we all started off by crossing a stream, and we were the only ones. It took about a couple hours, and it was cool. The moon was out, and we had this really great overlook, and it was just a really fun time, just a fun memory making time with the family. Got home at like 1 a.m.
Yeah, because Thunder Knob, it's not like exactly in our backyard. So
no, I mean, it's a drive out there. Yeah.
Granted, it's all relative. I mean, we can have a backyard that is 15 minutes away, and for us, 3 hours away can still be considered backyard for people who long to be in the Pacific Northwest. So I guess that is relative. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was.
That great. Is super cool. Did you have another one you wanted to mention?
Oh, I was just thinking about all the interesting things I did when I worked at the farm. Like this heat reminds me of a couple of years ago planting probably about 1,000 very small onions in the ground in the very hot heat. So planted probably about 1,000 onions at a farm and many other things. So yeah, I used to drive tractors. It was fun. Made some wine.
It was cool to actually go out and visit you at that farm. So yeah, that was that is a neat farm.
Mm-hmm. Juice, grape juice comes from there.
Yeah. Those who are watching Echoes before COVID, when we were on our annual retreat, we got to make grape juice together, and the grapes came from Danielle's farm, and it's the best juice I've ever had. So we canned it, and we're still using it, actually. So even though it's been a COVID year and we haven't been able to do another batch, we still have some. So awesome. Yep. Well, most of the folks we interview don't actually come to Echoes, and you do. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning, Echoes is a little bit of a funky experimental church here in Bellingham, Washington. And you ended up in Bellingham, and then you ended up in Echoes. Like, just if briefly, how did you end up in Bellingham, and then how did you end up in Echoes?
Yeah, the real brief story is I was working in ministry, and that ended rather abruptly, and that was like a big shift in life, like a sea change. And so I started to think about what else I would do. And I've always had this dream of someday like having a piece of land. I've always been into gardening, and so I thought, oh, it'd be so great to have some property and have like a small farm, host retreats and offer spiritual direction. And I thought, well, then the next step would be to learn how to like actually farm instead of like my small scale garden, to like get some bigger chops. And so I found a internship that I ended up doing for a couple of years out in Everson. And yeah, it was a really good time. This has been the last few years, like some deconstruction of the some of the structures of faith that had kind of fallen apart for me. So that's also leads into how I ended up at Echoes. Was it was a really safe place to land, especially kind of coming to terms and accepting my sexuality, identify as lesbian, and coming out of church context that was not affirming. It was really important to find a place that was, and Echoes was that place. And it also kind of just hit all the other boxes of like the creative ways we connect with God and the ways we connect with God through nature. And so yeah, it's just been a joy to have found Echoes and to be part of it, and just that it's always a little different. And yes, quirky is a good word for it. So
Yes.
big fan.
Quirky is, yeah. It is a good word. Yeah. So, and we do meet on most Monday nights. So Monday night, like tonight, this is our regular gathering night. But occasionally when we're doing outdoor things like Wild Church or a service project or something like that, we're also, some other weekday or weekend day or whatever it, but mostly Monday nights. So, and Danielle works for the Whatcom Family Community Network, and specifically with the MAD Hope program. And I would love for Danielle to have an opportunity to kind of tell us about kind of her work. But one of the things that was important to her, just to let everyone know, this can be challenging conversations. It could hit home in ways that maybe someone wouldn't expect. And so we just want to throw some information in there just a little bit. Whoops, it went away. Just some phone numbers to be able to have at hand. And I will put these in the chat box as well. So it'll just keep scrolling for a while, and then I'll add them in the chat box. So just feel free to take care of yourself, have a snack, have a drink. And if you need to step away from this and come back to it later, or contact Danielle and Danielle's team, that's something that's available to you as well. With that as a preamble, knowing that this is life and death, literally, your work is majoring in life and death realities for folks. Tell us a little bit about what you do and who you work for. And there's a lot. Kind of however you want to enter into that question.
Yeah, sure. So I do work for the Whatcom Family and Community Network, which is a local nonprofit here in Bellingham. And within that umbrella, I help manage the MAD Hope program, which is an acronym. It stands for Making a Difference, Helping Other People Everywhere. And it is a youth suicide prevention and wellness training that's peer-led. It's for the audience is really for youth, because we believe that youth are, we say that youth are the eyes and ears of their peers. That means that they're going to know and see things before the adults do, which is so true. And so this was youth-led. It was about 12 years ago. Wait, is that right? 12 years ago. That there was a string of 5 youth suicides within the span of 5 years here in Whatcom County. And so some students at Bellingham High School said, we have got to do something about this. And so they they told some trusted adults, some staff, some caring adults in their school and community, and they held a meeting, and the community came out and started forming the Mad Hope program. So ever since then, we have a team of young people that we go into classrooms, usually middle school and high school health classes, and we do this like interactive, engaging training for youth, and teach them how to feel equipped to know what to do if their friend is struggling, or if they are struggling. What are some things to look for? What are those warning signs and risk factors? And then this year, this past year, because of the pandemic, everyone had to switch to online. So we also kind of had to pivot from being in the classroom. So my team and I created an online, like a virtual training, which maybe we could like show a few slides of that. But basically, we were still able to serve schools throughout this whole county. And I think that, like, I'm still working on the data, but we still served, like, we still did over, I think it was about 130, just trainings over Zoom. And it was really effective still, which was good, because this was a rough year. Students really felt the impact, on their mental health, and are still, like, this is going to be ongoing. And just being like disconnected from their peers and from the support that a lot of students, not all students, find at school, was pretty rough. So yeah, it's a really big, it's a big issue. It is one of probably the top issues, I would say, that a lot of concerned folks are trying to tackle in Whatcom County. So yeah, we say, it's okay to not be okay. And I could, if you're interested, I could kind of like go into a little bit more of what we do in our training, or if you have other questions. But yeah, like, I think the main thing is with Mad Hope, just hope that youth will lead the way, like that, because they are the eyes and ears, like they're able to help, help a friend. And so we want to just empower them to know how to do that, and get connected to a trusted adult. So trusted adults is like another huge thing that we talk about.
Yeah.
And then just to like find ways to grow their own social, emotional, like, health and just resilience building. And so we talk a lot about like, what are some things you can do when you're going through a tough time? What are some protective factors? Let's talk about that. So yeah, it's been really meaningful. It's not easy. It can be really tough sometimes, because students they'll disclose that they're really struggling, or they've got a friend that has attempted, or they have maybe attempted in the past. So yeah, it just kind of makes my heart go out, and it makes me wish that every student, if every kid had a trusted adult in their life, that would make a huge difference. Like, everyone just had one caring adult that they knew they could talk to when they're going through a tough time. That'd be huge.
Okay, there's a ton of stuff in there I'd love to ask questions about. The first is, so this program actually came out of kids asking for this.
Yeah.
Kids saying, we need this. How long ago was that?
So I think I got the years wrong, because math was never my strong suit, but it was 2012, I believe.
Okay. So this program's less than 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And it happened. Like, some folks somewhere made it happen. And was it the Whatcom Family Community Network that was working with it from the get-go? Like, how did it end up on the table of Whatcom Family Community Network?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, no. It really started. So actually, one of the founders, Jeff McKenna, who just recently retired, from the Bellingham Public School District. He was a prevention interventionist. He was pretty instrumental in helping it get off the ground with these students. And so the Bellingham Public Schools has, been a big part of it from the beginning. And then I don't remember exactly when, but at some point it did come under the umbrella of WFCN. And I want to say that maybe was like maybe 6 years ago or something like that, but I might be off. It might have been like 5 years ago. So, but it is a big part. I mean, WFCN is really passionate about capacity, like community capacity building, so that families and youth and children can thrive in Whatcom County. And so it's a big part of what we do.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And would you say kind of the bulk of your work is doing the trainings?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I do a lot of things. We are a small nonprofit, and it'd be great if we had more funding, because I would love to have a permanent assistant. But I do get to work with some pretty awesome interns that are often students at Western, which is our local, the local campus nearby here. And so I work with interns, and then we have some volunteers, some really great volunteers. Many of them are also students at Western, but we try to, incorporate high school students who are part of prevention clubs, or even middle school students, in different ways. So I coordinate this group of volunteers and interns to go in and help give these trainings in the classrooms. And so a lot of it is that, and working with teachers and administration, but also just, community partners. I really love to collaborate. One of the things I think that is just so important and necessary in this work, right? So there's like a lot of great people in the community who are doing good things and really trying to help support young people. And, it's really great to be able to partner with them. Like one of our partners is with the juvenile justice system. They have a program called Community Links, which is really cool. We do that. We do our training with those students about once a month. So yeah, and then there's other like events. If we had a youth pride this year, we would probably be out there tabling or just supporting the kids there. And so as those things begin to happen again, we'll have a presence in the community. And then we do have like some other workshops. Like we're going to have a trusted adult workshop that hopefully will happen maybe in the fall, where young people are helping adults around them know how to be a trusted adult. So yeah, that's a lot of it. There's a little bit of everything. There's we do a lot of different things, but mostly the trainings.
So you mentioned, obviously you had to go virtual this year, as everybody did with just about everything, unless you happen to be, a healthcare worker or a grocery store worker. That's about it. Do you want to show some slides from kind of what a virtual training was going to look like for kids? Another thing I would love to know a little bit about is trusted adults. That's an interesting phrase. And what does that mean? And how does one be one? So kind of what would you like to tackle first?
Yeah, definitely. Are you able to share some of those slides?
Yeah.
That might be easiest. Okay.
And I might even be able to have sound with this. So,
okay.
Oh.
So we ended up using a online platform called Nearpod, which I think a lot of educators might have ended up using to help create an engaging kind of presentation. So we're sponsored by the Whatcom County Health Department, Bellingham Public Schools, the Whatcom Prevention Coalition. Oh yeah, that's another thing that I do. I'm part of that. the Whatcom Prevention Coalition executive planning team. It's a really wonderful way to pull people in the community together to, think about how to help our community to thrive. And then, of course, WFCN. But yeah, if you want to, I don't know, maybe you could like go through some of these slides so people get a taste of what it's like.
Right.
And, this year, we also just really tried hard to think through how to be like more culturally and identity affirming in our content, as well as, like I mentioned, like more providing more resources and tools for emotional support. So here's, kind of an example of some of the things that we talk about. We emphasize the importance of connection, and connection saves lives is our tagline. In fact, like I've gone to a lot of trainings this year online, and I was actually just reviewing this report from, it was like COVID-19 prevention behaviors research summary. This came out of, I think, the Whatcom Health Department. And, there's like, basically when you read through all this and like the impact that the pandemic has had on people, and especially like youth mental health, it's a really negative impact. And what I hear and read a lot of is that one of the solutions, one of the biggest things that we can do is to find ways to connect. And so connection for anyone who is struggling and maybe feeling really alone, or isolated, or just like that, this has been a really, really rough year on so many different levels and layers, is find some way to feel connected to others, to your own self, your body, your spirituality. That all matters. All of that is a huge protective factor. Yeah. And then we talk about, trusted adults. We really get into like some data around student mental health, and suicide prevention, and, who is most affected, and how suicide prevention is also tied to social justice issues. And especially when we, talk about how the LGBTQ plus community is at an alarmingly much higher risk than others. And so we talk about like, well, why is that, and what can we do about it? And there are things that we can do. It's really just, kind of boils down to respect and to learning. And so we go into all that with the students. We kind of get their feedback too. And then we share about how to open up a conversation with someone using empathy. And we practice words of empathy with each other. And the students do this, and then we have some videos that we share as well. So yeah, I feel like it's been, it's been a rough year, and yet I feel like we are still able to really reach students. Oh, this is neat. So we have a young person who created a zine. Do you remember those? It's really fun to make these.
Echoes has made a couple of those.
Yeah.
Echoes has made some. We're probably overdue actually to make another one.
I think we are. I feel like we are.
For sure.
Yeah, I love our little mini zines. Well, we did like a, I probably have a copy of this here somewhere, but we have a little like booklet zine that's showing on the top left there, and on the bottom middle there. And so we pass these out, just trying to find ways that students will like pick this thing up and find out like, oh, here's how I can see if my friend is really struggling, and how I can like have that awkward conversation and ask them like, hey, I'm just concerned about you. I haven't seen you in a while and just want to see if you're doing okay. And if your gut is saying like, no, they're not doing okay, to like really trust your gut, and then ask them that hard question of like, this is really awkward, but I'm just, I'm hearing you, and it sounds like things are really tough. And I just want to ask, like, if you've ever been thinking about suicide, or killing yourself, which sounds like super awkward and it's hard, but we know from research that asking the question directly is really important, and it doesn't plant the idea in someone's head. So it actually can be a very big relief for somebody who's in that state of mind.
Can I back up just a second?
Mhm.
So you mentioned it doesn't plant the idea in their head, and I think that's actually, at least in my own perception, it's easy to think that, right? To be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to mention the word suicide because then they're going to start thinking about it. So
Mhm.
that's not the case, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. So for somebody um, who's in that place, who's already kind of in a deep depression or thinking about suicide, it's actually a big relief because it shows that you asking is not going to scare you off if they are like, yes, like finally they can get that off their chest, right? And they have someone to talk to. And so for someone who's already there, it's not gonna plant the idea. And it breaks the stigma. So there's still so much stigma around suicide and mental health, that bringing it up and just talking about it can really break the stigma. We say that everybody has mental health, just like you have physical health. So, Sharris, if you showed up to Echoes one day and you just like fell off your bike and you broke your leg, probably all of us would be concerned and say, Sharris, you probably need to go get some professional help because your leg is broken. And why don't we do that when people are struggling with their mental health? Like we just don't really, I feel like we avoid talking about it, or, we find unhelpful ways of dealing with it. And so that just leads to isolation and like it's a taboo subject. And the truth is that there's a lot of people who are in that place, who have days that are just so hard that the emotional pain is so overwhelming that they think that the only way to escape that pain is to die by suicide. It's not that they really want to die. People want to stay alive. They just really are desperate to escape and end that pain. Yeah.
Wow. Do you want me to keep going with the slides?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about it. Bring it up with people.
Yeah.
The video, it may or may not give me sound. Would you like me to play it or keep going?
I could just talk about it. So one of the things that we did to be creative is we just asked different student prevention clubs. This is the club out at Ferndale High School, using Zoom. It's kind of a neat way. You could just record a video. And so these are students talking about what things help them get through a tough time.
Let's see if it'll play. Hang on.
Hey students, this is the FHS Mess Club, and we are a mental health focused group at Ferndale High School that provides resources and support to FHS students. And we also run the Eagle Support Group at FHS. We just wanted to share with you some ways and some methods that are helping us get through this rough time. Awesome. All right. And everybody remember that connections save lives.
Awesome.
Yeah, these students.
Oh, look, and you've got a pupper too.
Yes, yes. We love to share our pets.
Hey, Buster.
Yeah. So
to be able to have kids speak with kids instead of just always having an adult be the one who's trying to, reach the kids and to have youth leaders be kind of helping their own is hey, it's huge. It would have been huge for me. I would have been much more able to listen to my peers, I think, than I would have, most adults. Not all, but most adults when I was young.
Yeah, they really do listen more closely. And that's why, I was in youth ministry for a long time. And so part of my philosophy is, we talk about like the importance of handing the keys over at some point, like to trust these young people. they have a lot of knowledge and capabilities. And so, I think about like the importance of just trusting them. So like with some of the young people that I work with, we talked about like, all right, there's a lot of things that we're doing. And one of the things I don't always have time for is like communicating through our social media, like through our Instagram and Facebook. So I'm like, I would rather just hand that over to the younger people anyways, because they know like how to make something look cool and put it out there. And I don't need to like micromanage that. Like I feel like I can, just empower them to do that. And I feel like the more we can do that, not to ever abandon a young person and just like back off too far, but to really like, coach them and empower them and especially like, in the area of like, here's how to talk to a friend about mental health. To say like, we're not saying to be a mini therapist, right? Like, please also seek out a trusted adult so that, like you might be in a situation it's over your head. Like you might really need to get someone to help you connect this person, especially if they're in a mental health crisis, to the help they need. And so, don't keep a secret, like don't keep a deadly secret. Please reach out and get some backup help and connect them. So it's really, I guess, a partnership, right? Like adults and young people partnering together, and then empowering them to kind of, in a way, lead the way, right? Because they often know.
Yeah.
So.
Leading the way, letting the youth lead. Oh my gosh. Yeah. What an important concept. So it looks like you've got a quiz here too.
That's actually a pre-survey. Yeah, you can skip all that.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Wow. This has got sparkles too.
Oh yeah.
So what about this trusted adult thing? I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share if that's okay. What about the trusted adult? What is a trusted adult? What do you mean by that? How does one become a trusted adult?
Yeah. So that is a big part of our presentation. Sorry, my dog is like being crazy in the background. So we asked, students to tell us, like, what do you think a trusted adult is? And they'll usually like come up with it, right? Because they know, they're like, oh, it's probably someone I could just go and talk to, who will listen without judgment, and that sort of thing. And so we tell them, like, we had some Whatcom County youth ask other youth, like, well, what do you think were qualities of a trusted adult? And they said their top 4 things are: 1, that they're good listeners; 2, that they show up; 3, that they believe the young people; and 4, they say that I'm here if you want me. And so those are the top 4 qualities. And the thing that's interesting, like, believe them.
Let's say that again, because I want to get that in the comments here. So hang on. So the characteristics of a trusted adult. Okay, number 1.
Yeah, that they're good listeners.
Okay.
And so that means like listening without judgment, right?
Yeah.
And like not just giving advice. 2 is that they show up.
Show up. Okay. Yeah. 3
is that they believe them.
Okay. You're busters. Yeah.
4, they say, I'm here if you want me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So good listeners and without judgment. Good listeners without judgment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one thing about the believe me part is, it's sad. I hear students talk a lot about like, well, yeah, I tried telling an adult that I was really struggling or feeling suicidal, and they didn't believe me. They thought I was just, trying to get attention. And that's really unfortunate. It's really sad, because, now that young person is probably not going to be so inclined to open up to another adult. And so it's really important that you believe a young person if they are opening up and telling you something, if they're telling you that they're struggling, to take them seriously. And you know what? It's not really my job to try to determine if they're just trying to get attention or not. Like, I would rather be on the side of, let's show this person some empathy and compassion and see what's going on underneath all this. Tell me more about that. There's a great way that you can answer response to a young person. So yeah, to let these young people know that you believe them is really important. And then, we say that trusted adults can be anybody. They could be a teacher, it could be a parent, but it might not be. It could be a school counselor, or your next door neighbor, or someone from church, or your, friendly bus driver. It could be a community leader or an elder. So just kind of helping students think, like, who might your trusted adult be? We actually created a trusted adult page on our M.A.T webpage. So people, if anyone here is interested in learning more, if you go to madhope.org, there should be a button that says trusted adults. And then, it talks a lot more about that. And I think until the end of the month, or maybe it's been extended, you can even send out an e-card to your trusted adult. I mean, I don't know, Cheris, if you can think back to when you were younger, who your trusted adult would be. And if they're still around, it would be kind of cool to send them a little e-card to say, hey, Mrs. Brown, just letting you know that, you were someone I thought I could go to if I was having a hard time. And then there's art that came from students. This year we had a trusted adult art contest where they could create, what they thought a trusted adult looked like. And so there's some really cool things on our website there.
Yeah, I remember, of course, trusted adults. I mean, I would trust my parents with some things, but certainly not everything. And I was having a super unbelievably difficult time when I was a teenager. And if circumstances had been a certain way, it would have been very, very likely that I would have attempted to take my own life. And and I wasn't going to talk to my parents about that. I wish I could have, and I know some teens can, but for me, just how I was wired, my huge fear of disappointing them, and I didn't want anyone to freak out. And so probably I'm thinking through. I'm trying to think through this as you ask this. Who would have been my trusted adult? In one high school that I went to, I was a military kid, so ended up in several different high schools. One of the high schools that I went to, and I always felt, most high school kids feel really awkward. I felt like I was completely on the outside of things, very awkward, and lunches were terrible. I hated to figure out who I was going to sit with. And that my history teacher, when I was a junior, maybe sophomore, junior, or something like that, she would leave her classroom open if kids wanted to come in and eat lunch. She was there, like it was her lunch too, and she let us, and so it was me and a friend or two, and we'd go have our lunch in there. And I remember every once in a while I could just go up and sit at a chair next to her desk and talk. And she would have been a trusted adult, but I didn't have that many. If we'd lived closer to family, I would have had an aunt who would have been a trusted adult. But it was challenging. It's challenging to have those people that you could trust. And so I think throwing this topic out, this possibility of what it is to be a trusted adult to adults, now that I'm an adult, how can I be that for somebody else? And that's pretty huge. So those characteristics, I think. So let's say you know these characteristics. How do you find a teen to be this for?
I don't know if you're laughing because I'm like, oh, here's another slide we could show. This is what some young people just said. that they would
Great.
look for in a
Put this
trusted
up
adult.
here.
So yeah, we just like piloted this trusted adult workshop, and actually my 2 boys were part of it. So this is like what the young people said that they're looking for. So that's why it says qualities that we look for in a trusted adult.
Right.
And so I thought that was pretty accurate at the bottom right. Someone who doesn't overreact.
Oh,
That's
right.
that's really important, right? If they're showing something that might be like, whoa, you want to say like, you shouldn't think that way, and that's really not helpful. That's going to shut down the conversation, right? But yeah, so your question was like, if we're adults watching this, how can we be a trusted adult? Yeah, I would just tell people, think about who are some young people in your life. Do you have a niece or a nephew, or maybe your own kids or their friends? It might be that you are your kids' friends' trusted adult.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking similarly, like as a young person, I don't know that I would go to my parents to talk to them about everything, but I might talk to my friends' parents. Like we had these great next door neighbors, the McCulloughs, and I would go camping with them, and I just felt really comfortable, with their family. And so I felt like, they would be safe people if I was in trouble, if I needed to talk about something, or it could be an older sibling. But yeah, think about who are the young people in your life. Maybe it could be at, a place that you go, like a faith-based place, or it could be just your neighbor. Like maybe you've got some kids on your street. You could just, wherever you have those connections, just, without being creepy, like just show an interest, like show that you're caring, like, find out what they're interested in. And if they're interested in Minecraft and want to tell you about Minecraft for the next 20 minutes, like my boys would, if you listen and show interest, like that develops some trust, and like, you care about their world. So things like that, I would say, are really good to think about.
Cool. That I really like the word overreact there. Someone who doesn't overreact. In the a part of my training was as a hospital chaplain, and the number one requirement for a chaplain is to be able to control your own anxiety. And it's along those lines, right? So if a teen would say something to me that absolutely freaks me out, it can still freak you out. You just can't show it. So an overreaction is like this, "Wah!" And they're gonna know, right? So it's moderating and managing. It doesn't mean that you can't be anxious. It just means that you have to be present for them and what they need. And that means not freaking out now. You can freak out later when you're on your own. But being able to be calm and measured and conversive, and all of that is going to be huge. So the word overreact just makes more sense than non-anxious. Be non-anxious.
Non-anxious presence. Well, and this is like, these are what, the young people, this is like how they're thinking, right? Like that makes sense.
For sure.
So
cool. Okay. Those are good things to keep in mind. For sure. Good deal. Okay. And do you have trusted adult like workshops?
So we're going to hopefully have one in the fall. I'll let you guys know. And yeah, that would be led by young people for adults. So
I just like the idea of having a training by a young person, honestly.
Yeah. We paid them a little bit, give them a gift certificate to Mallard's ice cream, and give them a little incentive because they're doing really good work. This is important, and we want to value that. So finding out, like, just having I think it'd be really cool if groups of adults, whoever those adult circles of friends or community you're part of, would have a conversation about that, like how to just involve more caring adults in your own kids' lives, you know? Like for me, I feel the same way, like you were mentioning, like you wouldn't go to your parents, and I would feel really, really great if my kids knew that they could like name off like, you know, a bunch of other adults that they felt like they could call up or go to if they're having a hard time. That wasn't me. And I think sometimes maybe parents feel a little like insecure about that, but that's actually a really good thing, because your kids aren't going to want to tell you everything. And having someone that they can tell is really important. That can be really great. So I'm glad I feel like I had, you know, a handful of people like that in my life.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any, and I'd love if folks had questions, feel free to put them in the chat on both YouTube and Facebook, and we'll have a chance to ask Danielle. We have one from early on about being a spiritual director that we want to get back to. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll get to those in just a minute. So what are some stories? Like how many folks have been through a training now?
Oh, it's usually, it's like, I don't know this year, I haven't counted everybody up, but I think that the average is, it's like it's thousands. It's like over 1,000 students a year throughout Whatcom County.
A year.
Yeah, and what's really cool about our program is it's not only really neat that it's youth led. So as we're doing the content, like all of that youth contributed to, or they vetted this, and every year we kind of do that, and they're also helping present it. But so it's peer-to-peer, but we're a nonprofit, and so we aren't charging for this. A lot of programs out there cost a lot of money, or they put kind of the burden on learning it and teaching it on the teachers. And teachers are overwhelmed. They don't have time. So it's really wonderful for, some of our partners in the schools to be able to contact us and just schedule us to come in. And sometimes students respond better to outside presenters, they'll like maybe share more. And then, the teachers don't have to necessarily, do all that work. Sometimes, it works great because it's part of their health curriculum. And so we're able to really supplement that part of what they're learning about. But yeah, so we were in a school this past year. We did the training, and it was a high school. And so we had heard that, a couple months later, that some of those students who had gone through our training were talking with a friend over text message. So as they're going through this conversation, they started to kind of trust their gut. They were noticing that one of the friends was really struggling with their mental health. So they remembered some of the warning signs that we talked about, like, some warning signs would be withdrawal, not doing the things that they normally would enjoy doing. Could be like a drastic change in behavior, either, really depressed and withdrawn, or it could be the opposite, like someone who's typically kind of like low energy, all of a sudden has a lot of energy, is very extroverted, is, giving people compliments, and might seem like, oh, they're doing a lot better, but actually it could be that they are planning to not be here anymore and saying goodbye. So noticing those behaviors, those warning signs, even just like how somebody, like if they're not taking care of themselves physically, that can be a big warning sign. So these high schoolers noticed that their friend was really struggling. And they put the training into practice, and were able to find out that this friend who was at home, because it was the pandemic and they're all at home, had a plan, to attempt suicide. And so one of the students called their mom right away, and that was their trusted adult. And that took a lot of courage, right? That was really brave. And so they told the mom, you need to call so-and-so's mom right now and tell them to go upstairs and check on their kid, because the mom of this kid was just downstairs and working from home. you see, so she didn't know. She went upstairs and was able to intervene in time and get her kid to Seattle Children's to get help. So that's just one story. It was like, wow, this training is really important so that students who might have friends that are struggling can recognize that they're struggling and to not delay, to not be afraid to intervene, and to just reach out for help right away. So that, it's really tough because it just shows like the reality of students here they're struggling. They really are struggling. And yet I feel like that the more youth that get the Mad Hope training, the more resilient we'll be, the more eyes and ears, to like be aware and to look out for each other. And again, like having those connections is, with trusted adults is going to really be part of the net that strengthens our community.
How does this work for you? I mean, you've just told us a story about one teen who everything worked, right? So the kids had been trained, they had trusted themselves, they had done what they needed to do, and help was provided. Like there were intervention, like there was not like the typical understanding of what an intervention is, but they did intervene to create an action that paused this particular teen's intentions, potentially saving a life. And so this is kind of what you do. It can be heavy. How has this work had an impact on you? Like what kind of effect has doing this had on your own life? And you're raising some kids, some of whom are teenagers too. So
yeah. I mean, honestly, there are days where it's hard. I feel like you said, you're present, you're able to kind of hold that space for the young people, and that's who they need you to be. And then afterwards, my team and I will debrief. We always check in before with each other. How's everyone doing today? Okay, are we ready? And then afterwards, like, okay, let's debrief. Did anyone get, especially over Zoom, like, did anyone have any disclosures? Sometimes they'll private chat us, right? And then we get the teacher and the counselors involved right away. And so, there are times where we definitely would have to connect with the counselor at the school, like, okay, you need to follow up with this student. We're really concerned for her. And it's heartbreaking because sometimes you'll find out like some students are very close to this topic because maybe a parent had just taken, their life in the past year, or something like that. So yeah, we do kind of debrief. I've got, my supervisor, we meet every week, and so there's that support. But for me, I really need to make sure I'm staying grounded. And so, some of that is knowing like I've got the community at Echoes that I'm going to meet with every week, and to feel supported by you all. And I have a spiritual director myself that I meet with pretty regularly. And then I still kind of farm here at home. I have my own little mini, like, farm going on, because that connection to the earth and to growing food is really, there's something very like healing and grounding for me. So, we talk a lot about this year, like metabolizing the stress that we're carrying, the emotional, heaviness this year has brought. And so for me, a lot of that is like, tending to plants in the garden or playing with the dogs, being out in nature, doing something tangible with my hands, like when we made this little seed balls, however you want to call them, with the clay and the seeds, like that was really just good. It was like very healing. And yet, I feel like to be sustained in this work for the long haul, like there's it would be great if there was more support for like our own mental health. You know, if I could see a therapist regularly, that would be really wonderful. Very expensive, but like I think, you know, necessary. And then just taking some time, taking time off when I can. So yeah, it's interesting how I feel like I have maybe a larger capacity than most to carry like heavy, hard things. So maybe that's part of it too, is my own kind of epigenetics. My mom is very resilient, has had a majorly hard things in her life that she's overcome. So there's a little bit of that in me too, I think. Yeah. Cool. But just, you know, ultimately just really loving teenagers and wanting their best. And I love being with them. So yeah.
Sweet. One of the early questions we had, Adrian asked, would like to hear about your role as a spiritual director and how would one engage you for this type of work? So what is a spiritual director? Because you just went through training recently, and you have a spiritual director, you are a spiritual director. Tell us a little bit about that, and then how would one find you to be able to have you as a spiritual director?
Well, thanks for that question, Adrian. Yeah, so I actually do have an Instagram account for this. It's just not really fired up yet. But yeah, you can email me. I'll put my email address maybe in the chat. And this is really new. So, I mean, I have met with people at this point, but I haven't really had time to get this up and running. But I love especially meeting with people to support those who are in movement work. You know, that's tough work to be sustained in as well. Just the movement for, you know, working towards social justice, liberation. So, you know, I really have a heart for that. I believe my email is spiritualaccompanier@gmail.com. And I need to just verify that. That shows you that I really haven't really done too much with this. But yeah, for now, you know, I can put, maybe Sherris, you could put my, I think my
spiritual accompanier
at Gmail. That's one way. Or you can look for my Instagram. I think it's the same, spiritual accompanier, on Instagram. Yeah. So, I mean, I would meet, and, you know, it'd be like a 45-minute to 50-minute session that really helps people who are trying to discern the movement of God or the divine, or however you call it, in their life. And so there's like a relationship between me and others where we listen deeply for that movement. And I would, you know, offer some reflections, or if I'm noticing, you know, where that movement is, I could offer that as, to the client. So it's like deep listening. It's really been helpful for me, especially times where I feel like I just didn't know where God was anymore. It was like walking in the dark. So yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah. And yes, there is an Instagram account, and Danielle, you need to put some posts on there.
Self-promoting myself.
I am pretty darn sure that Danielle would be a fabulous spiritual director. So I'm glad you went through that training, even though you did it on top of a full-time job and raising kids and developing a garden and all of that. So for sure.
And the whole year.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of winding down towards the end of our time together. And is there anything else that you would be like, oh my gosh, I really want to make sure we touch on this before we close?
Yeah, I was wondering if there's any other questions from anyone. But, since we are a little nonprofit, if anyone wanted to make a donation to the work of Mad Hope, I think there's a link on the WFCN webpage. I don't think we have a donate button on the Mad Hope webpage. Or, you can just email me at madhope@wfcn.org. And that'd be really wonderful. The other thing is, if anyone was interested in like volunteering with me in Mad Hope, that would be wonderful as well. And so, yeah, if you're interested in learning more, you can send me an email. We also do have a Lunch and Learn coming up on Thursday, July 8th. I don't know if you have that slide, but maybe we could share this. Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. So from 12 to 1, you need to like register via the Zoom link. But yeah, that'll be me and my great summer intern, Emma. We'll be doing a 1-hour training, kind of going through some of those slides that you saw. And then this week, on Wednesday, actually my friend Adrienne, she is part of the Pride and Joy LGBTQ plus, youth kind of support group. Adrienne, you can like put in the comments if I'm getting that all wrong, but out in Novi, Michigan, I'm going to be speaking at their library on how to support specifically LGBTQ plus youth mental health. And I think that probably anyone can like register to watch that or to see that on Wednesday. So yes, thank you. This is the Lunch and Learn on Thursday, July 8th, the 1-hour training. And yeah, I'd love to have anyone who's interested in getting that training to join. I think that's maybe it.
Cool. Yeah. And the need, we were talking a little bit earlier, Danielle and I were, about just the high percentage of queer youth to have trusted adults to need potentially significant or maybe increased support, and the unique struggles that particularly brings. Yeah.
If you go to the Trevor Project, which is a really wonderful LGBTQ plus mental health, suicide prevention organization, I highly recommend supporting them. Yeah, they did a 2020 survey, national survey. So this is really really recent, and it's just really it's really tough. They have a ton of stats there showing that like 55% of LGBTQ youth, for example, reported symptoms of major depressive disorder in the past 2 weeks, including more than 2 out of 3 transgender and non-binary youth. And so that's a lot.
That's a lot.
40%, seriously considered attempting suicide in the past 12 months. And more than half of trans and non-binary youth have seriously considered suicide. And honestly, we use the Healthy Youth Survey information from Washington State. And the numbers are very high in Whatcom County. So, this is a really big deal. It's a big issue. And one thing that we do know is that, like, for trans youth, using preferred pronouns and chosen name, if they are respected by all or most of the people in their lives, they attempt suicide at half the rate of those who don't have their pronouns respected.
Wow.
some of this is just a matter of respect, and it's suicide prevention, right? So
Respect is
regardless of
prevention.
where you might
Right.
be, like how you feel, yes, like we're about wanting to save young people's lives, right? So so I think that is worth like just being respectful, like asking, like finding, if you know a young person and they're like, yeah, my pronouns are he, him, or they, them, like really try to make an effort to respect that. So yeah, I'll just kind of say that.
Cool.
Mhm.
Well, along those lines, Echoes got its start at Pride, and it'll be 8 years ago this month. Well, next month, since
Wow.
Pride in Bellingham is in July. Um, and so we are going to have, believe it or not, our first annual, I think it's probably going to be annual, um, our first annual Pride Church. So we're going to be having that
Woo!
on Monday. Whoa!
We
Yay!
got the flyers out.
Um,
Wait, let me see that slide again. That was
yeah.
cool.
So we're going to be having Pride Church next Monday at 6:30, probably till about 8. We haven't publicized this yet, but we're gonna do that very soon. So donations are going to go to the Queer Youth Project, and
Hey.
we hope we're going to have a dance party. And so there's going to be some cool guests, and Betty Desire is going to give the final blessing. Tori's going to have a poem. We're going to have some music from Amber, probably pre-recorded. Usually sounds a little bit better that way too. But this will be on Zoom rather than on StreamYard, so we'll have a unique Zoom link coming out this week. But that's another way to be involved and say, hey, folks who need some extra support, folks who need a community that they can be themselves around. And churches have historically been not kind to those who are queer. This is an opportunity to connect being queer and faith, and it's a little bit harder to find these days. So. And so to consider that. So again, it's Mondays. We're typically meeting Monday nights at 6:30. Got the little ticker down there. And you can find out information about Echoes at echoesbellingham.org or our Facebook page. So we post a lot of stuff on our Facebook page. So Danielle, you have been a delight, and I know you've got a kind of a blessing to send us out with, which I'm so excited to hear. Your thoughtfulness, your commitment to the well-being of others, and specifically, this is well-being of teens. And oh my gosh, teens can be so scary for a lot of adults. Like teens are way too cool for adults, and so, I mean, I can be intimidated by teens just because I'm not cool. I'm like, I don't know how to be okay for you. And you have a way to connect with youth, and that we need, this world needs, Whatcom County needs. And so I'm so glad that you're doing the work that you do. So thank you for that, and for sharing yourself with us. And I do hope and pray that your time with the folks in Michigan coming up is going to be fruitful. And do consider donating to the Whatcom Family Community Network. And a donation can get to Mad Hope through their donation page. So definitely check that out, and see if you can potentially help out with that. So, Danielle, again,
Awesome.
thank you. And
Thank
you have some words that you'd like to close us out with.
I do. Well, I was writing this for my spiritual direction cohort, which is Still Harbor, a really wonderful, justice-oriented spiritual direction accompaniment program. And so we had a little assignment to just, write an affirmation for a group of people that is meaningful to you. So of course I thought of Echoes. So I wanted to say, to the community that was a soft place for me and others to land, to reorient to ourselves and our faith after what may have been a particularly disorienting time in life and faith. Thank you. When there were no words to pray, or prayer was just too hard, you gave us permission to listen to a tree, to paint with ashes, to squeeze mud and soil and seeds and call it prayer. When people's young lives are taken for no reason other than because of who they had a crush on, you declare that God is not embarrassed or angry, but rather honored by our rainbow lives. You are quirky, unusual, and won't move without considering our salmon and orca siblings. We engage our community with the hopes of creating a more just and equitable way of life for us all. And though we are small, our gatherings create more meaning making than 100 Sundays spent inside a building doing church. So may we grow together, sustain one another, and may our presence be an echo of divine love wherever we are. Amen.
Wow. Thank you. We're going to definitely put that on our website. That's beautiful. And it sums up so much of who we are. So thank you. At least try to be our aspirations anyway. So, well, folks, we are coming to an end. Thank you for joining us tonight. Again, Danielle, thank you. And we will end with our advertisement for next Monday, which is Pride Church. And if you are not queer, it doesn't matter. You can still come. And we would love to be able to have church together on Zoom with some special guests. And we will have a fabulous time, and hoping that it's our first annual. So go in peace, everyone. And check out the possibility of the future trainings next Thursday, the lunch one. When there's community trainings, definitely hit these up, because this is, again, life and death stuff. And we can be better humans when we have some better resources to be able to help those fellow humans around us who need it. So again, thank you. And I'll leave us with our little sign here. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.